I never imagined love could die quietly. You always think it ends with shouting, slammed doors, or teary confessions, but sometimes it dies between two people still sitting at the same table, scrolling through their phones, pretending everything's fine. I'm Daniel, 36 years old. I live just outside of Denver. I met Leah 5 years ago at a friend's barbecue, back when she still laughed like she meant it. She was the kind of woman who made you believe you'd finally found your person. Sharp, funny, impossible not to look at. The first year was magic. I'd never felt more understood. She used to tease me for how seriously I took life. You overthink everything, she'd say, nudging my arm, smiling. That's why I like you, you care too much. But somewhere along the line, that same caring became a punchline. It started small. A comment here, a sigh there. If I mentioned something that bothered me, how she'd started canceling plans or how she'd spend more nights out than in, she'd smirk and say, "Relax, Daniel. You're not my warden." I told myself it was stress, work, life, anything but what it was, distance. The first real crack appeared on a Friday night. She came home late smelling like gin and someone else's cologne. I asked her if she'd been drinking. She rolled her eyes, kicked off her heels and said, "God, you sound like my dad." That night I lay awake beside her staring at the ceiling, feeling something heavy settle in my chest. It wasn't jealousy. It was clarity. The kind you don't want but can't ignore. Weeks passed. Conversations became shorter, laughs rarer. The silence between us stretched longer than the words we managed to say. I tried, God knows I tried. Dinners, small trips, even couples therapy she attended twice before saying, "This isn't fixing anything." Maybe she was right. Maybe by then nothing could. Then came that night. The one that shifted everything. It was a Tuesday. Ordinary. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, half smiling at something. I asked her if she wanted to order dinner. She didn't look up. "Daniel," she said, almost laughing. "Funny how you still think we're a couple." I stared at her, waiting for her to say she was joking. But she didn't. She kept scrolling. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. She shrugged. "I mean, come on. We barely talk. We barely touch. You think this is still a relationship?" Her tone wasn't angry. It was worse, casual. Like she was commenting on the weather. Something in me cracked open. Not rage. Not heartbreak, just finality. I stood up, walked to the bedroom and opened the closet. Her side was full. Clothes, shoes, the perfume she hadn't worn in months. I started packing it all into suitcases. Slowly, carefully, no shaking hands. No yelling. She followed me after a minute, standing by the door, confused. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer right away. I zipped the last suitcase and looked at her. "You said we're not a couple," I said quietly, "so your things are packed. Get out." She blinked like she didn't believe I meant it. "Daniel, stop being dramatic." "I'm not being dramatic," I said. "I'm being done." Her face went pale. She laughed a little. Nervously maybe, but I didn't. I didn't have to. There's a kind of calm that comes when you finally accept what someone's been showing you all along. I carried the suitcases to the door. She stood there, arms crossed, staring at me like she didn't recognize who I'd become. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked just slightly. "You're really doing this." "I'm just finishing what you started," I said. For the first time in months, she didn't have a comeback. Just silence. She grabbed her phone and keys, muttered something under her breath, and left. The sound of the door closing didn't hurt. It sounded like peace. But peace can be loud when you've lived in quiet chaos for too long. That night I sat on the couch, the same spot she'd been sitting when she mocked me. The same glow from the TV flickered against the walls, only now there was no perfume in the air. No sound of her typing, just the hum of the refrigerator and the steady rhythm of my own breathing. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel like the problem. I just felt free. The next morning, the house was still quiet, but it felt different. Not empty, just lighter, like the air finally had space to move again. I made coffee and sat by the window, watching the sun crawl over the fence. It struck me how foreign peace can feel when you've spent years managing tension. My phone buzzed once. Her name flashed on the screen. I didn't answer. She didn't leave a message. By noon, the guilt began to creep in, the kind that whispers, "Maybe you overreacted." Maybe she didn't mean it. But then I heard her voice again in my head, that mocking laugh. Funny, you still think we're a couple. No, I hadn't overreacted. I'd just finally reacted. That weekend, I cleaned the house. Not in anger, methodically, almost tenderly. Every drawer, every corner, every memory. The process felt like reclaiming a place that had been mine in name only. I found a note she'd written years ago, tucked inside a photo album. "You make me feel safe." I stared at the handwriting for a long time before throwing it away. Not out of spite, just acceptance. Some people mean what they say only for a season. A few days later, she texted again. "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen, coffee in hand, debating. Curiosity won. I told her to come by in the evening. When she arrived, she looked different, less confident, maybe tired. She didn't come inside right away. Just stood on the porch, arms crossed. "Daniel," she said softly. I didn't mean what I said. You know that, right? I let out a small breath. "You meant it enough to say it." Her eyes darted away. I was just angry. Angry at what? That I still believed we were something worth saving? She didn't answer. Just stared at her shoes. The silence between us stretched again, but this time it wasn't heavy, it was clarifying. "I don't hate you, Leah," I said finally. "I just can't keep pretending this feels like love." She looked up then, and I could see something flicker behind her eyes. Maybe regret, maybe fear. "You really want me to go?" "I already did," I said. "You just didn't notice." She tried to smile like the old Leah used to, but it didn't land. She nodded once and walked back to her car. No tears, no dramatic goodbye. Just the quiet understanding that something had ended long before that night. When the door closed again, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt still. That night, I went for a drive. The city lights blurred in the rain, and for the first time in months, I caught myself humming along to the radio. It wasn't happiness, it was relief. In the weeks that followed, people asked what happened. I told them the truth in as few words as possible. We stopped being kind. Because that's how love dies, really. Not with betrayal or shouting, but with small cruelties that go unnoticed until they're all that's left. I started going to the gym again, reconnected with old friends, learned how to fill silence without someone else's presence. Every day I missed her a little less. Not because she'd been awful, but because I was learning to live without needing her validation. One night, maybe 2 months later, she texted again. "I hope you're okay." I read it 3 times before replying. "I am." That was the last message between us. Sometimes I still think about her laugh, the way she used to tuck her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. But those memories don't hurt anymore. They just remind me of a man who tried and a woman who stopped. If I learned anything, it's this. Love can survive almost anything. Distance, time, even mistakes. But it can't survive mockery. The moment someone starts treating your devotion like a joke, they've already left. Now when I look around my quiet house, I don't see loss. I see space for peace, for clarity, for someone who won't think it's funny that I still believe in commitment. And if she ever wonders what happened, I hope she remembers that I didn't throw her out in anger. I just finally decided to stop living like a guest in my own home. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can say isn't "I love you" or "I forgive you." It's simply, "Your things are packed. Get out." And when the door closes, you don't hear goodbye. You hear freedom.